Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast, brought to you by Violet Defense. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products, or if you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of their technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Thanks again to Violet Defense for sponsoring the Educational AD Podcast. The Educational AD also wants to thank Varsity Brands featuring BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing, who helps thousands of schools across the country seamlessly provide convenient digital ticketing options for their communities, families, and fans. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. The Educational AD also wants to thank Booster Digital Displays, Camp Mobile, Vital Signs, Gipper, and Ephesus Lighting. Thanks to all of the great sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're staying in Florida today with she's not new to athletics, but she's getting ready to start a brand new job. We're visiting with Destiny Brightman. Destiny is a certified athletic administrator, and she is the recently named AD at Orange Park High School in Orange Park, Florida, kind of up in the Jacksonville area. Destiny, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you for having me.
Well, you come very highly recommended from one of my good friends, a friend of the show, John Scromolo, your county AD. So he obviously feels good about you. So that's fine with me.
Thank you.
Destiny, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school and college, and I'm guessing how love of athletics, kind of led you to this position that you're getting ready to start now.
Absolutely. So I'm originally born and raised in Ohio, a little small town called Fairborn, Ohio. And I think that is where I decided that I wanted to be involved in the sporting atmosphere. So when I was born and raised from kindergarten all the way until the 10th grade, and right before the 11th grade started, my mom came in, said her job had transferred her, and we were moving to Florida. And, the big cities in Florida, you think about Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and she said, I asked where, she said, Niceville. And I went to look at the map like, yeah, I don't see Niceville. So it was in the Panhandle.
Oh, yeah.
And best experience that I could have had. But again, it was totally different for me being from Ohio and then coming to Florida. So from there, I ended up going to college at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, also known as FAMU. Mm-hmm. Played volleyball. My sister was also a volleyball player there. So I got to experience playing with my sibling, whom we grew up so very close together. So that was unique in itself. And so then I ended up, my high school sweetheart that I met in Niceville had gotten drafted to the New Orleans Saints. So I moved there, left college, moved there, ended up coming back just to finish. So I ended up getting my bachelor's in health and physical education, and then stayed and got my master's in sports and leisure management. And to be quite honest, it took for me to do an internship where I was, in a school, a middle school. And that's when I said, yeah, I think I'm going to stick with athletics, because my major was education. I just was not quite ready for that. But through a lot of prayer, the Lord just kept directing me to education. And so then, I started coaching on the high school level, and then moved to Jacksonville area. My first job was actually at Orange Park High School. So I started at Orange Park, worked there from, for about 7 years. And then I ended up taking a virtual position with the county. So nothing changed except for I just wasn't showing up, every day at 7 a.m., but I was still able to coach. So I took over a program. So while I've been here, I've coached volleyball, some basketball, tennis, weightlifting. And then I went to another school in Orange Park and was the head volleyball coach there, and also the assistant athletic director to our mutual friend, John Scromolo. So I've always had sports in my blood, from every sport. I coach volleyball, but what's funny is I tell my girls, fun fact, when I say, here's a fun fact, basketball is my first love, but that you would never know that because I'm so involved with volleyball. But yes, so that's been how I got to where I am, right now. But athletes in our family, my son is a college football player now, and my daughter plays volleyball in high school and, aspires to go and play on the collegiate level. So it's definitely been in my blood.
Well, having spent a few years up in the Panhandle in Tallahassee, I know right where FAMU is, and been to
Yes.
many competitions at Niceville. Your own experience, it's just another reminder, we always will have that favorite sport, but
Mhm.
it's not always going to be the one to get you where you want to be. 100 years ago, I thought I was going to be an NBA basketball player, but when I went to college, nobody was interested in a 6'2" center. So it's a good thing that I played football in high school and ran track, because that's what I ended up doing in college. And that helped me
Okay.
get my coaching and teaching career going. So similar paths, but years apart. Okay.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that transition from the teacher coach into the assistant athletic director position. And now, you're on the verge of, running your own program. I guess here in Florida, for our listeners, we're recording this on August 3rd. So it's already, we're on day 2 of starting sports up in Florida. So
Yes.
talk a little bit about your experience as an assistant AD and some of the things, or I have to say it, some of the tools you might have picked up that are going to equip you to do a great job at Orange Park. Talk about that process.
So I'm blessed to have had that opportunity to be able to be the assistant, just because sometimes, you have people who can make it look really easy. And I did a lot of the grunt work, which help prepare me for where I'm going now. I tell people all the time, like, if you are really interested in getting into this, you really need to get into, that grunt work. It's not all glorious in the beginning because it's a lot of work. And I am more prepared now, knowing that, my children are older, and, knowing that my time, I think the experience of being able to go to each sport, because volleyball was my focus, but being the assistant AD, being at each one of the sports, and just kind of seeing how coaches ran their programs, how the event coordinating and setting everything up, how that worked, was a huge preparation to where I'm headed now. So I think the biggest transition for me is, as a teacher slash coach, you deal with the majority of the athletes and the students, right? And so then in this athletic position, it's more of a, I am now dealing with more adults. I'm still going to deal with students, but now that's that adult area as well. So I think that is the, I would say, like, the biggest transition.
You're absolutely right. I remember when for many years, I was a head football coach and an athletic director. So I still have that, connection with a lot of the kids. But when you become that AD, now you're absolutely right. You're dealing with adults, but oftentimes those adults can act just like children. So they
Absolutely.
bring you back around real quick. Um, you touched on it earlier, and we mentioned it a little bit before we came on. In our profession, we always talk about the importance of leadership and particularly mentorship.
Mhm.
So I always ask our guests, who were some of your mentors, either, maybe family members and parents growing up, or maybe people that you worked with or worked for. The expression I always use is I still hear those voices in my head when I'm
Mhm.
talking with a coach or a parent. So whose voice do you still hear?
So I always hear, my parents first. I think that anything I've ever aspired to do, that I've always been supported with that. My mom would always say, honey, you can do whatever it is. You put your mind to it. You're smart. You can handle that. You know how to handle people. So that would be my number one support. My stepdad that raised me, he was big into sports and he has since passed away, but we share the same birthday. His voice follows me a lot. And he was more of the, you get out there and you do what you need to do, type. And so although they come from two different angles, they both, were my biggest support. As far as my mentoring, I knew coming out of high school from just the coaches, all the coaches that I had from volleyball, basketball to track, I knew I wanted to be a coach. I also knew that it would be better for me. I just respected all of my coaches and all the things that they instilled in me from Ohio to Florida, and I used to tell my girls all the time, like, you all probably couldn't have played back in the day when I played because we had tough coaches, but it was that tough love, that molded me into who I am now. But in this athletic realm, John Scrumlow has been my biggest support system and someone who, I highly respect, and just to see him climb that ladder to where he is now, just the young, vibrant, the energy, the positive leadership that he, has developed. He shares a lot of information, just positive information with me that sometimes we as coaches, if you don't have someone to show you that or even talk to you about it, I mean, who would know that you're a negative Nancy and you didn't even realize it? So that positive reinforcement, and so I've been blessed to have that type of mentorship. And that's just what I would say from just having great experience. I always say as a coach, I'd never want to be the reason why a child decided they didn't want to play this sport again, right? And so, I've had experiences where my coaches have made me love it. And so that's why I do what it is that I do.
Oh, it's always great to hear that. Great stuff. Um, Destiny, we have a lot of, I think, younger athletic directors that are, starting out even, much younger than you. And I think it's important for them to hear the stories about getting involved, with your state association, getting involved at the national level. And, again, you are a certified athletic administrator. So just real briefly, talk about how that got started, how you became aware of the LTI courses and led up to your CAA.
I think that, once you dive into knowing exactly what it is that you want to do, and again, it took to see other athletic directors being, certified in those, and it was just an inspiration to see all of the positive impacts that you learned. So in every job, in order to grow, you've got to do things to help continue to grow. If you're coaching, you got to go to coaching clinics, and you stay abreast with the new things that are changing. And I think that having a certification and being certified are things that you need in this job. It just helps you to be better at what it is that you're doing. And so for the young ones, absolutely, that is a path that, you definitely should want to aspire to get into.
Okay. For our listeners, we are visiting with Destiny Brightman, certified athletic administrator, and the brand new director of athletics at Orange Park High School here in Orange Park, Florida. We're going to come back, but right now we're going to take a quick break and hear from our podcast sponsor, Violet Defense. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products, or if you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of their technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Thanks again to Violet Defense for sponsoring the Educational AD Podcast. We are back with Destiny Brightman, Certified Athletic Administrator and the new Athletic Director at Orange Park High School here in Florida. Coach, one of the things we like to do with this podcast is the idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. What are some best practices that you've seen maybe at other schools or even in your role as an assistant AD that when you look at, you say, boy, these are really great. I want to bring these best practices to Orange Park. You got any you can share with us?
Sure. First and foremost, I think that being organized is probably the best practice that I've witnessed, and that helps you run anything. So organization and being on top of things, because in this role, there's just a lot from paperwork to, every program. Also, creating the student experience for the athletes. And so I have witnessed, working as the assistant athletic director and, Friday night lights, just having that you would never know, what the score was at the game, if we were winning or losing, because that atmosphere was created for, the student environment, and you wanted to be there for Friday night lights. I think that is what I am going to take with me, first and foremost. And, from pep rallies, again, I just think it's the student morale, the culture that, that's being set on campus dictates, the atmosphere that we're in. And so those have been some of the best practices that I have witnessed and will take on with me.
That's so cool to hear. The last 20 some years of my career were at private schools. And, what you're talking about, that student experience, those are words that I would hear from my bosses because they understood, hey, these kids have a lot of choices and these parents have choices too. And
Right.
so we want to maximize that experience. And again, I don't know what your percentages are. I'm going to guess they're pretty good. But, at our school at Tallahassee, we've got about 80% of our students are on at least one varsity team, and a lot are on two. So that's a big group of students you want to make sure are having a great student experience. I love that term.
Right.
Destiny, another question that I've been asking our athletic directors revolves around this idea of social awareness. And I'm going to tweak the question a little bit. I hope, again, I'm not catching you off guard. And to our listeners, it's August 3rd. The Olympics are going on. And, here's my question, Destiny. I'd be interested in your thoughts. Simone Biles, the great gymnast, greatest of all time, if you will, obviously has been very candid about some of the mental health challenges and performance challenges that she's experienced. And, you're, a former athlete from a different era. I'm certainly, much older than that. Where do we, I don't want to say draw the line, but that's the only thing that's coming to my mind right now. How do we balance, the idea of, come on, you got to be tough, you got to get in there, versus being aware and sensitive to, I'm not going to say mental health, but health, because mental health is health,
Right.
issues. Do you got an opinion on that?
I do. I say all the time, the one thing I never want to mess with is someone's mental stability. And being an athlete, and understanding that 95% of that sport when you're out there is mental, right? But I do think that just like with an injury, you want your athletes to, listen to their body and, not over push themselves, and a mental, and I think Simone, that was something that she did say, it was affecting her mental health. And she was very candid, about that. And I think that it's something that has to be acknowledged, because right now you have to put someone in their health in front of what they can do in that sport. And I think that the world is so involved in her being this, gold medal Olympic, that you hadn't taken into consideration that, this could be a cry for help. And so mental health is huge to me, and just nowadays, in general, younger generations, they suffer from that. It's stuff that I don't think that we, suffer from as much, but it's a lot of pressure in it. Why it's all that pressure now, I'm not quite sure. And I think that, that's where that positive, and not to say that she hasn't had positive reinforcement around her, but it's I don't know if, what type of pressure it is to be an Olympic.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's a whole different level of pressure. I say all the time, I need game players, like I need gamers, not practice players, because some of these kids fold under pressure. The minute you bring an audience, a whistle, a scoreboard, a time clock, that's a little bit of pressure. So to have the whole world of weight on you, I think it's a lot. I think that is absolutely a lot. And so we have to be sensitive when someone recognizes that, this is a lot for them. I do think that we have to be sensitive to that.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that. And I agree 100%. These are humans, these are kids, these are student athletes. And oh, by the way, they're also doing a sport. But
Right.
yeah, it's just so tricky these days. Let's lighten things up a little bit.
Okay.
What's your favorite part of the job? Now, I've been asking this for almost 200 interviews, and invariably, the answer used to be, "Oh, it's about the kids," and of course, it's about the kids. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this career. But acknowledging that you love the kids, it's for the kids. What are some other things that get you excited about coming to the school each day?
I think that, I tell people all the time, I can light a room up, when I walk in, I can do that. I am super, super excited I'm a people person, to be able to bring fresh, new ideas, to the campus of Orange Park High School. So outside of the students, I'm excited for the relationship building from across from the faculty all the way to custodians to teachers, and being able to experience that at game times at all of the different sports, and showcasing all of the sports. I'm a female, so I think that it's exciting for students now because they feel like I can give a different perspective. Because sometimes, we're always looking at the male, sports. And so I'm super excited to be able to be in this role, as a female, and be able to address both sides, the male and the female side.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Okay. My wife's a career teacher and coach. I've got two daughters and a son, but always tried to make sure that we were promoting the girls' sports, and I think we did as much and sometimes even more than the boys. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Destiny, this has been so cool to meet you and get to know you. Hopefully, we'll be able to cross paths at Denver this year. You make sure Scromolo allows all his ADs to go to the national conference, but
Absolutely.
we're not done yet. Okay,
Okay.
we always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're certainly an experienced athletic administrator. We've already established that. But right now, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put three things in their toolbox. What three items are going to go in Destiny Brightman's athletic director toolbox?
A set of keys to every building on campus, um, a walkie because you're going to be called numerous times from the front office, and maybe a golf cart to visit all of the different, locations on the campus.
Okay. From my many years as an athletic director, I can tell you that every single one of those things is vital. If you got a big campus, you're not going to walk from point A to point B, and maybe sometimes in 20 minutes. So
Right.
absolutely. Okay. Destiny Brightman, if one of our listeners wants to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
You can locate me via email at destiny.brightman@myoneclay.net. You can follow me on social media. Instagram and Twitter is OPHS Athletics, and Facebook is Orange Park Raider Athletics.
So again, play this recording back if you didn't get all those, but for the email, destiny.brightman@myonclay, that stands for Clay County.net. Did I say that right?
You absolutely did. The one is spelled out O-N-E.
Correct. ONE. Yeah. My one Clay. I know that because I've emailed Scromolo so many times. Okay.
Yes.
Destiny, all the best as you take on this new challenge. I know you're going to hit it out of the park. And as I said, we're going to look forward to seeing you in Denver at the NADC conference.
Yes. Thank you.
To our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these interviews are uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast.